Adieu Achul is making soap at her home-based factory in the suburbs east of Nairobi. The hardship of growing up in a refugee camp made Adieu want to do something to change the plight of refugees. And after getting trained in soap making, she set up a business.
I believe I'm still a refugee, and anything I do will always help my community. I'm in a position to be able to help my community. Why will I not help them?
Achul works with humanitarian groups like the UN Refugee Agency to distribute soap, face masks, food and other donated items to the most vulnerable and needy families among the refugees, as well as the host communities back in Dadaab and Kakuma refugee camps.
The refugees who approach us with a brilliant idea like Adieu had, that they want to help a refugee and also the vulnerable host community, then we must support, because the funding for the humanitarian agency unfortunately reducing significantly during the COVID-19 pandemic.
Having overcome many odds, Achul is completing her last year of studies for a Bachelor of Commerce degree and runs a mentorship program for refugee girls and young women.
I run 2 mentorship programs, one just to train them on basic entrepreneurial skill, and then the second one is about the important and mobilization, anything to do with education specifically, so that when after their childbirth, they will choose either to go back to school or to have their own business.
Kenya is one of Africa's top refugee hosting countries with over 500,000 refugees, mainly from the neighboring Somalia and South Sudan. But the government wants to close 2 camps, which together house more than 400,000 refugees and asylum seekers. Achul is worried about the fate of refugees if the camps close. The UNHCR is urging Kenya to keep them open.
We're living in the period that more than 80 million people are displaced over the world. And this is the time that we need a solidarity more than ever.
While the refugees await Kenya's final decision, former refugees like Achul are stepping forward to help the vulnerable in their community during a difficult and uncertain time. Juma Majanga for VOA News, Nairobi.
I'm very happy to see you.
The smiles, the songs, the prayers, the kicks.
Playing soccer makes me feel really, really happy and really social.
These are some of the 82.4 million people the UN reports as displaced in 2020 by persecution, human rights violations, and events seriously disturbing public order. It's the highest number on record and comes even with COVID-19 restrictions on movement and border closures.
And what is really quite shocking is that over the last 10 years, the numbers of people who are refugees or forcibly displaced has more than doubled. Something like 48% are children and youths. So we really have generations of children who are separated from their countries of origin.
The UN reports that overall 1 in 95 people is now forcibly displaced, including more than half the population of Syria, both inside the country and out. Syrians represent the largest group of those displaced internationally, and experts say their needs are many.
I want to tell you about even education. You cannot just put education alone. You need to put education with mental health, for instance, together, because we have a lot of traumatized Syrian refugees and they cannot comprehend. So you need to work on the mental health, like psychosocial support plus education.
Venezuelans represent the second largest group of forcibly displaced people. Many have fled to neighboring Colombia. And displacement from Central America is up 50-fold over the last 10 years, with many refugees heading north to the United States.
And I think it's really important to think about refugees not just as a burden on society, but to think about them as consumers and contributors, because they actually add to economic growth. They add to economic development.
The number of unaccompanied children in 2020 was disproportionately high, according to the UN report, and climate change further drove migration and increased instability among those already on the move.
The need for resources, water, land, ability to feed herds and to grow crops, these are all affected by climate change. And they lead to conflict, and conflict leads to displacement.
The UN report showed that 86% of people displaced across borders are hosted by developing countries. Laurel, Bowman, VOA News, Washington.
Camboin Sin, a neighbourhood on the edge of Ouagadougou, is home to thousands of internally displaced people, IDPs, who fled the country's Islamist conflict. But an estimated 8,000 IDPs, like Hawa Bamago, receive no state support because IDPs are not allowed to register in the capital. She fled from her village, Kelbo, 6 months ago, with her 7 children and 9 grandchildren, after terrorists attacked.
It's not easy when you see armed men entering your village and killing people. There is no choice but to run away.
Bamago collects gravel to sell to builders, but barely makes enough money to keep herself and her children alive.
We are only suffering. I have never seen poverty like this. We are left with nothing, no food, and here it is not easy to live, as you can see.
Burkina Faso's humanitarian minister has publicly stated that IDPs are not allowed to register in Ouagadougou because the city is unable to support them. But unregistered IDPs do not officially exist, so most aid groups are barred from offering help. IDP community leaders say the state is trying to force them out of the capital to live in camps in the countryside.
We are from that area and we know what it is like there. There are not enough sites created to welcome IDPs, to accommodate everyone, and the facilities are not adequate.
The government has also banned media access to official IDP camps, a move that aid groups say dangerously reduces their visibility.
Could also mean that we will see decision makers creating policies based on inaccurate or incomplete information. This will undoubtedly have negative impacts on efforts to provide and protect displaced Burkinabés.
This is what Burkina Faso's government doesn't want you to see. An IDP camp recorded by someone who, for security reasons, cannot be named. Around 400,000 IDPs here were excluded from voting in last November's election because they lost identification papers or weren't offered registration. Burkina Faso's Ministry of Women, National Solidarity, Family and Humanitarian Action did not respond to requests for comment on why it is making so many of its IDPs, like Bamago, invisible. Henry Wilkins for VOA News, Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso.
Malian dance students Amri Ag Abdullahi and Mohammed Oud Najim are struggling to master a new routine. For much of their lives, they've been struggling to survive, living in an insecure refugee camp on the Mali-Burkina Faso border after fleeing Islamist militants.
Dance has helped us forget how many of the things we have been through. When we came here, there was sadness, a lot of sadness.
The 3-year program by France-based Burkinabe dancer Salia Sanu aims to help marginalized youth and refugees.
The center has a mission to reach out to youth and refugees in difficult situations, to do cultural and artistic meditation. Through dance, these people can find themselves.
Najim says dance is helping them to express themselves and tell their stories.
When we were at camp in Mentau, we were closed in. I wasn't happy to be alive. I was just living. That was it for me. My life changed with the dance, and I am more at ease than before, and I've overcome a lot of things.
Dance instructor Idrissa Kafando is training the group of 25 students, some of whom are from marginalized backgrounds.
We educate everyone who comes here. Dance can allow you to re-innovate yourself and become another person.
The two young men hope the training will help them become known as dancers, not just part of the 23,000 Malian refugees living in Burkina Faso. Claire McDougall for VOA News, Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso.
تمشي